Hello! So I just wanted to make this video for some of my Ithaca College friends who may have taken class percussion over Zoom or also might just be looking for a little extra help on brushing up their downfall of Paris. After our lessons today, I was hearing from both my friends I was helping and other people in the hallway that percussion is something they definitely want help on. So I thought this would be an easy way for me to at least give you a little start, and if you need more help, you can always come reach out to me because I'm more than willing to help. So in the comments or in the description, I've attached a couple videos that might help. One's of a percussionist named John Wooten. He's going through the whole downfall of Paris piece and explaining it, perhaps in a more fast-paced way than I'm going to, just because it's made for percussionists more so. There's also a video of my friend Ian's recital last semester where we played it in the traditional rope drum style, and an article that tells you a little bit about the history of it that I just thought was cool. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to play through the piece straight down with all the repeats and everything, and then I'll go back and I'm going to break down the rudiments a little bit, trying to help you find ways to practice them if you're struggling. So without further ado, so first thing I want to break down is just a little flam review quick. A flam is basically you play one tap followed immediately by a downstroke. The key is that space in between them. You don't want this because that's just one note. You don't want because that becomes too open and can almost be interpreted as like 16th notes or even an 8th note. So you want the notes to be just as snug together as you can. A nice little hiccup, if you will, is kind of what it sounds like. So one way to practice that is just starting really open and slowly moving the notes closer together. So you can kind of feel what it takes to get to that space. And it's a hard thing to kind of describe flams just because they're a little nuanced. Definitely start with your dominant hand being the one that comes down because it's easier to control your dominant hand. Like in percussion, our right hands are always stronger, so I always feel more comfortable with my right flams. And once you feel pretty strong on that, if you want to, especially because it does come up in this piece, practice with your left hand doing the same exact thing and trying to get it to match what it sounds like on your right hand. The next thing we come across in this is 7-stroke rolls. Now, in my lesson today, we were asking So how do you know how many bounces, how many back and forths to do with the roll? And the way that Ben and I were describing it is, if you have a 7-stroke roll, for example, you subtract 1, so you get to 6, and you divide it by 2 for 3. That's how many bounces you do. So, and then you tap. Then it adds up to 7 because you're hitting the drum 7 times. Now, the most important element of an open roll, which is what you're doing in this piece, is this kind of drop catch motion we have going on here. So the ways we talk about it in our studio is like bouncing a basketball, or like dinosaur arms even, going up and down. So you just want to take your stick, release it, and then catch it. In your fulcrum up here, it should feel almost like a seesaw motion going back and forth. And when you're just starting, you can kind of approach it like using just these fingers. You can take the back fingers off just to start. Don't do that always though. As you get more comfortable, you can wrap the fingers around because they're really more for support and control and not to do this motion. What you don't want with the roll is for everything to be coming from the wrist. The roll should be more from the fingers. So with this drop catch motion, one way to practice it is with the metronome. Again, always the best way to practice. Just going up and down like that, and as you become more and more comfortable, you can go faster and faster. And the control becomes kind of more focused as you get centered. Whereas at first we can kind of be open and take our fingers off the back. Once you get faster, you need to think more about squeezing a bit in the fulcrum. Not too much that causes you pain, but just enough so you can control the stick, and using your back fingers to really keep those rolls focused. Another way you can practice these, if you don't have a snare readily available as I do, you take the back of a chair. They make a good surface to bounce on, and even a good way to work on your finger control is the back of your arms like this. Using your fingers, and it just bounces. So, we take a bar like measure 7, for example. That combines all these elements. Now let me tell you an easy way to practice rudimental sections. So let's take that bar again, measure 7, and we're going to take out the flams on the first and last note, as well as that 7-stroke roll. So we get, obviously that's just 8th notes. We're musicians, we can figure out 8th notes. So the next thing I would add in would be the 7-stroke roll, but without the bounces, which gives you kind of a triplet almost. So if you practice that, make sure you're really steady with that, because then that gives you the placement for your diddles. From there, we can add in our flams. And once you feel super comfortable there, we can add back in the diddles. And the 7-stroke rolls in this piece should feel like triplets. Triplet, tap. Another section that might prove to be a bit challenging is measure 17, because when we get here, we have a 15-stroke roll that starts on a dotted quarter note. And when you do that little subtraction math thing I talked about earlier, that equals 7 bounces. And most of the time in our music, the way you would kind of divide up a dotted quarter note would be like 6 bounces. So you really have to be cautious. And even in the version I'm using right now, at the bottom it says these rolls are like fitted into the space of the next smaller roll. So whereas we would usually do a 13-stroke roll in that space, we're trying to fit a 15-stroke and an extra bounce. So you want to think about 7 hits in the space of a dotted quarter note. So that might have not been the best time thing. Let me do a little count off. 1, 2, ready, go. Again, I'm doing this kind of without a metronome or anything. A really easy way to work on that would be with the metronome. If you set it to 3/4, so you have the click, 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 trying to just get 7 hits right in the space of 3. So when you add in the rolls and flams and everything in measure 17, it's easier for me with rolls. Who knows why? I don't know. It's just about getting the amount you want in the space that you have, which sounds easier than it is, for sure. I know that when we worked on it in my friend's recital, we spent so much time on this passage. So another rudiment that comes up is the drag. When you have a drag, it's basically just taking that open roll, but only doing one. So make sure you're doing that drop catch motion. Obviously, as I said before, practice with the metronome, working on getting that faster and faster. And even on the back of your arm, if you have some sticks, sit on the couch, watch TV. It'll really help with that finger strength. And if you work on all these, I feel you might have great success with Downfall of Paris. I'm going to play it through one more time, a little slower than I did at the beginning, and if you want, you can take out your sticks, drum along with me, maybe, or you can just listen again and kind of think about everything I've said and how to approach it. Alright, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in class, and I am more than willing to help any of you with anything you might need for snare.